According to Freemasons, the letter G in Freemasonry stands for God. More specifically, the G stands for the great architect of the universe. Members of Freemasonry can belong to any religion they want, but to become a Freemason, one must believe in the existence of a supreme being, which is often referred to as the great architect of the universe. In addition, some believe the meaning of the letter G in Freemasonry means geometry. They say Freemasonry was born from this science, and all its symbols are ultimately based on geometry. However, even this theory still is focusing on, quote, geometry under the great architect of the universe, end quote, and therefore it is used to remind members of the fraternity to act right and work on improving themselves, as they are all under the great seeing eye of the architect of the universe. So who is this great architect? Other terms of the great architect of the universe has been the sovereign grand architect of the universe, or the, quote, all-seeing eye of God, end quote. These terms have been used by Freemasons since at least 1723. Freemason Thomas Mackay wrote, "The great architect of the universe is accordingly presented to us in a variety of symbols, three of which particularly require attention. These are the letter G, the equilateral triangle, and the all-seeing eye." 33rd degree Freemason and author Manly P. Hall wrote, quote, "Let him never forget that the Master is near. Day and night let him feel the presence of the Supreme or overshadowing One. The all-seeing eye is upon him. Day and night this great orb measures his depths, seeing into his innermost soul of souls," end quote. So now we're starting to get a picture of who this great architect is. He is the all-seeing eye. Not just according to observers like you and I, but according to Freemasons themselves. Where have we seen and heard this before? We see the all-seeing eye all over our money, the monuments in Washington, D.C., monuments in the world. Celebrities are constantly throwing up the one eye. Where does this one eye come from? Well, the eye of Ra would be one of the earliest or first representations of the grand architect of the universe, the eye of providence and the all-seeing eye of God. Secondly, we see the all-seeing eye as the eye of Horus or Osiris, otherwise known as Nimrod. Let me explain what I mean. You can go back and review past videos that I have done in-depth studies of Nimrod, Abraham, and how Nimrod was the first occultist and first to institute a one-world religion and a one-world government with his kingdom rule of Babylon. After the decline of Babylon, the priests and the people fled to different parts of the world like Egypt, Greece, and others, transporting the religion of Nimrod with them. This religion was established by Nimrod originally, and Nimrod became deified as a god. In Egypt, for example, the people worshipped Isis, Nimrod's wife, and her husband, Osiris, which is Nimrod, and the reincarnation of Nimrod, otherwise known as Horus. Some more background on Nimrod and his wife is that according to ancient Egyptian and Babylonian historical traditions, Nimrod's mother was called Semiramis. Sometimes Semiramis is referred to as the mother of Nimrod or his wife, leading to the belief that Nimrod married his mother. They both were held to be gods. She had another son named Tammuz, who she said was the reincarnation of Nimrod after Nimrod died. We hear a story just exactly like this from the legend of Egypt, which is Isis and Osiris. Some say is Nimrod and his wife. Isis and Osiris were married, and Osiris's brother was jealous of him and sought to take his life. Osiris's brother killed Osiris. Isis found his body and brought him back to life, calling him Horus, and he became god of the underworld. That sounds exactly like the story I just read of Nimrod and his wife Semiramis. When you do the studies on Nimrod, the fall of Babylon, and the spreading out of the people back then, you'll find that each culture, whether Egyptian or Greek or otherwise, are all essentially worshiping the same god and goddesses of Nimrod and his wife/mother, but they call it different names, and the story changes a little bit depending on the area and the language that they spoke back then. So essentially, Nimrod is not only Gilgamesh, but he is Osiris of the Egyptians and the reincarnation of Horus of the Egyptians. He is Apollo of the Greeks, and his wife is Isis. So if you connect all the dots, With these ancient stories, they are all describing Nimrod. So if we make a full circle, the great architect of the universe that the Freemasons are worshiping or having their members put their belief and allegiance in is actually Nimrod. Therefore, when you see celebrities and politicians look up and idolize people like Isis, Apollo, and Osiris, when you see our monuments and our culture are actually building monuments and statues to the allegiance of these ancient gods, they know exactly who they're making allegiance to. It's not just an allegiance to a myth of Apollo or Osiris, but they understand that this is Nimrod, that this is ancient, that this is the first civilization, that historians can go back and study, and they're trying to resurrect and keep alive the original intent and religion of Nimrod. Nimrod is the Antichrist spirit that Revelation says will return in the last days. We will continue on with this subject in the next video.